Hi everyone, welcome to day 13 of SQL Fundamental Learning. So today we are going to talk about primary key, foreign key, unique key, not null and identity. We can call them as constraint. So what is the purpose of it, right? We have learned how to store data, how to insert, update, delete data. You also have like how to read data using select. And we were in past few days we were learning about how we can use different case conditions, if loop, while loop, and all these things which help us to implement the business logic in a data retrieval. But as I mentioned in the data type session, right? Storage is also as important as retrieving the data, right? Because the size of the column, everything matters. So now, what I am showing in the screen constraints are something related to the storage of the data. So how each columns are being stored and how each tables are being related, how you can put some conditions before somebody stores the data. This is all like constraints are going to be there for. Okay, so I'll move on to the SQL. So where is my SQL query? Yeah, I have my I'm going first we will talk about primary key. I have my table named EMB, which I am going to create. So here you can see normally until yesterday when we were talk about create table, the statement used to look like this, right? So today I have something called primary key. This is how a syntax look like. If you wanted to set employee ID as a primary key in this employee table, you have to write a keyword as primary key. Now, before we execute and learn the querying, right, what is primary key and what is the purpose of it? As the word state, right, it is primary key, a key which primarily identify the records. So you know in tables we store data in rows and columns, right? So you have like 10-20 rows in a table. How do you identify you wanted to retrieve employee one related information? What if you have two employees, right? You need to identify like each row should be able to identify uniquely. So this is a very fundamental rules of database, how you have to store the data. So that means like every time when you create a table, store data, you should have a key column. It can be one column, it can be combination of multiple columns, but you should be able to say, okay, if you like filter data based on column 1 and column 2 or just with column 1, you will be able to retrieve the data uniquely. So that means that particular value will not be duplicated in the data, because if you have like one stored 3 times, when you filter the data, you are going to have a duplicate in it, correct? You'll get multiple results. So this is how primary key is defined when you are creating a new table. Also, okay, connect it. Okay, this should be created in DemoDB, right? So I have created the table, and this is the alter statement. So constraints are part of table. Okay, this is not like an object, it is a part of an object. That's say like if you are adding a constraint, removing a constraint, this is a change for a table. So I have employee as my existing table. So if I have to add a constraint, I'm setting, okay, my employee ID, you remember our employee table and the employee ID column, right? So I'm saying like I need to have my employee ID as primary key. I can use this alter statement. Cannot define a primary constraint on a nullable column in table employee. So when you set a primary key on a column, SQL has some conditions. Primary key cannot be null because in the previous classes we mentioned null can be mentioned as a value exists or not. It's not a value, right? So that for that reason, if you are setting a column as primary key, that column cannot be null. So when I set primary key for this employee ID in my EMB table, so this you will not be able to insert null values to the employee ID. Okay. So what should I do? I have my employee table. I'll go to design. Okay, it's not allowing null, right? Then what is the problem? So I will try to retrieve that down. I have employees table where employee ID is null. There is no column. So why are we getting this error? Alt table, alt constraint, primary key. Let me try to check. Did I already create a constraint? Is that the reason? No. Okay, this column is still defined as null. Then why my designing window is showing like that? I feel like I have opened this window earlier, but I have never saved it. So it was still null column, right? So this opened up an old window. So unable to add constraints. Okay, I was playing around with this. So let me open the design window. You can also use alter statement to make the same changes. I was lazy, so I don't want to do this. Okay, I'm saving. So employee ID column does not allow null anymore. And if I would have had null in this column, it would have thrown an error like a non-nullable column cannot have that property set, right? I'm adding this constraint. So I have a primary key in the employee table. So let me refresh. Okay, there is some key created. Is there a constraint created? No. So these are keys, right? We created a primary key. Is there an index created? Yes, there is an index created. So I have just written primary key, right? This is all I have done. But you can see a key created. There is no constraint, but there is an index created. Is there anything in trigger? Definitely no, right? Yeah. So what happens when you create a primary key? It creates a key column for this employee ID. Make sure that null is not allowed when you are creating first time. Okay, null is not allowed. And second thing, it also create an index. By default, it's a clustered index on the data. So that means your data will be stored and sorted based on the primary key by default. You have flexibility to change indexes and all that. We'll talk about it later, but yeah, just keep this in mind. When you create a primary key, by default it create a key and as well as an index on the table. So now why primary key is required? As I mentioned, you will be able to uniquely identify the data in this table. So now we have that employee table, right? EMP table. Let's learn the errors. I don't think like there is any data in this EMP table. So let us try insert into employee values 1 comma a. It's inserted, no issues. I'm inserting 2 comma b. insert. I'm going to insert 1 again. Okay. Now you can very clearly see violation of primary key cannot insert the duplicate key. So SQL is telling if you have a primary column, you will not be able to insert the same values again. So that is what primary key is, which help you to uniquely identify data, right? So the next thing which we are going to talk about is foreign key, right? Okay, let me close this screen. So yeah, so okay, I don't think like I have it. Yeah, I have it. Yeah, foreign key. So what is foreign key? Foreign key is a relational key which says that my related like if I have I'll explain this with an example that would be more easy to summarize. So I have my employee table, right? So I have department ID. If I say that every employee should have a department, if I have a statement like that, right? You need to have a relation. So this data is not accurate because you have employees without department, right? So, but if my like requirement says that every like employee should be mapped to a department, you should have a connection to the department table. So that means like you need to make sure that if somebody put a department ID as 19, so what is the guarantee you have that department 19 exists, right? So foreign key is a key that ensure the referential integrity. That's what we use the term. So that ensure like the reference, because this employee table have a relation or a reference to the department table, where like your department table's ID should be like every ID I add in my employee table should exist in the departments table, right? That is why like when I create a foreign key, I would say it is like let me show you the foreign key command here. So what I am saying is that okay, add a constraint, okay, add a constraint on where? Add a constraint on my employee table, which is called FK department. This is the name of the constraint, and it is a foreign key. Okay, what happened? Like this is not the correct. I think I should name the department, right? So here what I'm saying, let me take this into a new query window for your understanding. Yeah, so here I am saying like I need a foreign key, and what is my foreign? I need to create a foreign key in my employee table, and the foreign key name is FK department, and on which column I wanted to create? I wanted to create that on my department ID column. And what do you want to reference? I wanted to reference that to my departments, right? Departments tables, department ID column. Let us try running this, right? Will this work? It is not. Why? What is it? There is no primary or candidate key in the reference table which can act as a foreign key. So there is a next rule which you need to learn, that is department IDs, this department ID column should be a primary key if you have to create a foreign key in the employee table, right? Because why that is necessary? If you backtrack it, right, what I am saying, all my department ID consists in my employee table is related to department table. So what if like your department table have like department ID 5 times, right? Which I will directly go and pick, I don't know. So that reference should be unique. So I should be able to match to the right key when I am going to join there. So that is why SQL says, okay, you can definitely create a foreign key, but you should have a primary key for the department ID, right? So we can, I'll close these windows. I know this, I often end up into a wrong window. So I have that code written out already here. I have to create a pk, so I will say copy paste problem. So pk department id primary key in my departments table. I execute this. Okay, primary key column constraints on a nullable column. You know that, right? Because you cannot have a nullable column as primary key. And if I have duplicate in my department ID, that is again going to cause a problem. But I know that I don't have a duplicate in my department ID, so I am at least confident in case of creating a primary key. But null, we were not aware of the null when we were creating this table, right? We all know that. So that is why we got this kind of errors, and we are fixing it on the go. So now I have the primary key created. Will this solve the problem, right? Let's run this. We are going to see more and more interesting things. Yeah. So foreign key is created. So the rule says you need to have a key connected to it. Now let us insert a record into employee table. So I don't know what are the tab columns in employee table, right? I can click Alt F1. What is that? Alt F1 to list all the columns from that table, constraint key, all this information. If you wanted to get from employees table, click on Alt F1. That's a table definition keyword in SQL. If I need to pick the column name, I think this was not the great option which I took. I can just put that. I can put it here, right? So these are my columns. So now previously when we were inserting the values, we were inserting very easily. We had no constraint. There is no rule need to be followed. Here, will I be able to put employee ID 1? No, right? Because you have a primary key already. So you need to put anything number. I think we can put 3000. And I'll put a department 2. I know department 2 exists, and I'll put use get date. You know what is get date. We learned that date function. So I wanted to use these things so that like you remember what are these functions are, right? So I'm trying to insert this data. Let us see if this works. It worked great. So now let us go to some errors, right? I'm giving a department ID that is 70. And run the query. We started getting the error, right? Okay, we did not get that for that reason because I tried to insert a 3000 as my key. 3000 as my key, which was already exists, so that like the primary key error came, right? So you know why 3000 failed. Now I changed to 3001. Now you don't have a primary key, but you have a foreign key error. Foreign key constraint FK department. That was the name of the foreign key. You can just scroll up and see that is the name of the foreign key, which is in the department ID. So very simply, like, right, the error is telling this. Samit, you are going to insert a key called 70 that is not existing in the department's ID, department ID table. The way you can insert it successfully, you can go and insert a entry for the departments in 70, or you correct like what the right department can be, right? So let us try something interesting, right? I was like thinking when I was writing this query, what happens if I try to insert null? It allows, and I have nulls, right? And if you wanted to change this, there are way, like you can make sure that you should not allow null, and one way is like you should not allow null in the column, right? The simplest way. So there are way. So I don't want to go deep dive in, but understand that primary key help you to uniquely identify a column, and that doesn't allow null. But in case of foreign key allow nulls. You have seen right now, and foreign key help you to create a referential integrity with another table, so that like anything which you insert in your main table should have a connection to the other table. So this is what about like foreign key and primary key. So we have few more topics to cover, but since this video is around 20 minutes, I am winding this up right here, and I'll be creating a second video talking about the constraints like uh, not null, check constraint, identity, and all. Yeah, hope this was helpful for you to understand about primary key and foreign key. Please keep practicing it and understand the errors which you run into. I'll be sharing this code in the share location as common. Like, subscribe and share if this is helpful. Please share your valuable comments that help me to improve this in the videos. Thank you.